Coming to you from Denver, Colorado, home of RE/MAX World Headquarters. Adam Contos, CEO, here with Start With a Win. Producer Mark, did you start with a win, buddy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I started with a win, and I'm so happy.
I love that. Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm glad you're happy. Why are you happy?
Life is great. The weather's changing. It's getting like that kiss of fall is starting to happen like in the early mornings and stuff, which I absolutely love. Just so energizing. And we have an amazing guest on our show this afternoon.
We actually have a happiness coach on our show here. So let me introduce our amazing guest, Becky Morrison, a mom, a wife, a lawyer turned happiness coach. I'm interested to hear that story. Becky's mission is to spread joy. She believes most people can live happier, easier lives if they establish what matters most to them and develop a plan to do more of that and less of the rest. So she wrote an amazing book about all of this process. She worked in a law firm as a lawyer and administrator and small business. And now she's using all of this to help people be more happy. So Becky's book is The Happiness Recipe, a powerful guide to living what matters. So Becky, welcome to Start With a Win. Glad to see you here.
I am glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You probably have a lot of people seek you out. You learned a lot, obviously, about how to be happy, how not to be happy, whatever, with your backstory. And it kind of defines how people define success. They want to be a high achiever. You were a high achiever, prominent lawyer. So, a lot of times happiness is missing in these things. Did you realize something was missing and we're not happy or something like that? I mean, how did we make this transition from going, I want to be an attorney to I want to be a happiness coach? What was that moment?
So let me tell you a quick story. And it starts like this. It is a Tuesday evening, approximately 15 and a half years ago. And I find myself at around 8:30 at night, sitting on the floor of the bathroom. And I've got the cordless phone clipped to the back of my pants. And I've got the toilet seat cover closed. And I've got my notebook on the toilet seat cover. And I've got expert reports for a trial that we're doing spread out around me. And I've got a toddler in the bathtub. And I found myself there because it was one of those days where at the time, my husband was working in counterterrorism and something in the world had exploded. And we had already agreed as between us that his mission would take precedence over what I had going on. And so I had childcare duty and work duty. And I had two thoughts in that moment in super quick succession. The first thought was like, who says you can't do it all? I'm literally a superwoman. Look at me. I'm here. I'm killing it. Like, I'm here with my kid, but I'm also present and working on this, prepping our expert for testimony. And like, I am a rock star. And then not even a breath later, I had the thought, and I'm exhausted and I'm not sure I'm happy. And so that was probably the first of a series of things that happened to me over the course of 9 months that really woke me up to the narrative that I had been brought up with, which was go to school, get the good grades, get the good job, get the right title, make the money, then you will be happy, was not it for me. And that I really needed to figure out what it was that I was going to do to build a life that would work for me and for my family and for my happiness. Yeah. And when I say it was just the beginning, let me be clear. Like, I wish that I could have then had that moment and said, okay, that's it. Like, I'm awake. Let me figure it out. But that's not how life goes. And so from there, I encountered a series of other challenges, including a life-threatening pregnancy loss. And they say when you're looking death in the face, your life flashes before your eyes. And my experience very much was that what flashed before my eyes was conference rooms and conference calls. And that was truly the wake up, right? Like, that was truly the moment to say, wait a minute. Like, you've already had these thoughts about, really, is this the life for me? And then you're looking down like, what is my legacy? What am I leaving behind? What is my story? And it's conference rooms and conference calls. Something has to give.
Wow. I mean, that is certainly an eye opener there. And I mean, obviously you thought something has to change. So you wrote a book, you came up with a concept called the happiness recipe. Tell us about that journey going from, okay, now I've come up with a solution, or how did you come up with a solution to the fact that you weren't happy at that time? That just doesn't flash in front of your face, does it?
No. I mean, so there's 15 years between that bathtub moment and that pregnancy loss that I described to when I wrote my book. And that's 15 years of navigating a career as a mother and a wife and figuring out how to do it in a way that was as thoughtful and as balanced and as priority aligned as it could be. The idea is that the recipe for maximum happiness is just to do more of what matters to you and less of the rest. But simple doesn't mean easy to execute, right? And what I've identified is there's sort of three things that get in the way of us making that happen. And the first I call the authenticity gap. And it's, do we even know what matters most to us? Are we clear on our priorities? Are we clear on who we are? Are we connected to self? And then are we willing to claim that? The second thing is the obvious one. It's the execution. Once we know what matters to us, we're doers in this world and we like to jump right to doing it. And so how do we align? How do we live in a priority aligned way where we're aligning our action, our resources, our time, our capacity to what matters most to us? But the middle gap, I call the emotional energy gap. And that's the one that I think gets missed a lot. And it's the mindset gap. It's, do we have the supportive beliefs, feelings, practices that will allow us to shift from the way we're living today to the way that we want to be living, which is in a priority aligned manner.
What was just said here is really, really deep and very important. But I want to unpack the first part of this. You discuss the importance of stepping into your authentic self and being willing to share your desires with the world. How does this contribute to personal happiness, and what advice would you offer to someone unsure of how to do so?
What I'm finding more than I expected in my work is that because we have so much coming at us and because we're always moving so quickly, we are really disconnected from who we are at our core. We get disconnected from self in a very real and constant way, and we don't even realize it. And what the net result of that is that we aren't even sure what actually matters to us. We've actually just bought into all the messages we're hearing from social media, from our friends, from the people around us, from the world about what success and happiness should look like and when we should have it, versus really being tuned into what it is that makes us tick. I hope that that makes clear why connecting with who you really are and what really matters to you might matter to your happiness. Because when we are disconnected from who we are, we're not chasing the right things. In terms of sort of advice I would give to somebody who's not sure where to start, I have two things I'd like to offer. The first is really getting clear on the season that you're in. So, I said happiness is doing more of what matters to you and less of the rest. And I know you're a parent, Adam, and I'm betting the day that your first child was born, what really mattered to you most shifted a little bit. That's a season, right? Something changed in your life that changed what mattered and what might, how you wanted to spend your time and where you wanted to put your resources. Oftentimes we walk through life and we're not cognizant of those shifts in seasons that are happening. So the first step is really to get clear on where you're sitting today and what's in your life. And then the second step that I think is important to connecting with your authentic self is to really dial into what brings you joy. I know it's going to sound maybe a little crazy, but there's a lot of people who I ask, what makes you happy? And they don't have an answer. And so if you are that person, I don't want you to feel bad about it. You're not alone. And you do know what makes you happy. You just have to dig a little bit and really ask yourself the question and dig into the micro stuff that makes you happy. So make a list of a few things that really bring you joy. And they can be simple things. Don't judge what comes up. If wearing a cozy sweatshirt and curling up in bed with a good book makes you happy, write it down. If looking at a sunset makes you happy, write it down. If a hug from a friend makes you happy, write it down. It does not have to be big. And the reason I want you to make a list is because I want you then to take those things on that list and I want you to dig a little bit deeper. What about that thing brings you joy? And then I want you to keep asking that question 2 or 3 or maybe even 5 more times till you can get down to the essence of where that joy comes from. The reason to do that is then you have a menu of all of the essential sources of your joy that you can use every day to bring a little bit more happiness and to be a little bit more connected with what makes you tick.
That's fascinating, though, because when you think about it, people overcomplicate being happy.
Yes.
I mean, just so much so. And you just went through, I'm sitting there listening to the list going, oh, those things make me happy. But you forget about those things when you hit one of those major obstacles in life that cause you to not be happy. When you feel like you're under that avalanche of work and overwhelm and things like that. I guess the two biggest things that really prevent people from achieving or being happy in life are fear and overwhelm.
Yes.
And when we step out of those, which they're easy to step out of, they're just not easy to step out of because you feel like you're stuck in them.
Yep, absolutely.
So, well, this brings me to my next question then, Becky. Because you talk about getting to those places, but there are obstacles to getting those places. What do you see are ways that people can overcome the obstacles to achieving this? How do you break out of that, that rut that you're in?
I think it actually starts with naming the story of your fear and overwhelm. Actually telling the story of it, actually writing it down, or sitting down with a friend, or sitting down with a coach or a mentor or a leader in your organization and having a conversation about why you're feeling afraid or overwhelmed. Name it. Because what I find with my clients often is when they actually get it out of their head and into the world, they look at it and they say, gosh, that doesn't even make any sense. It's not really that scary, or it's not really that overwhelming. Or in fact, I'm not overwhelmed. I'm just a human in a body with a nervous system that does not want change.
I love what you have to say here. I know our audience wants to learn more from you. I know you have a website. Where can they find you online and learn more about your business, your coaching, and your book?
So, the best place, as you said, is my website, and it is untanglehappiness.com, and that is one-stop shopping. They can connect with me on social media through the links there. They can find other places where I've spoken, and of course, most importantly, they can find the book, and they can learn about the coaching work that I do.
Awesome. Becky, I have one final question for our amazing guests on the show. You've done so much to help so many people, but I want to know, how do you help yourself? So, Becky, how do you start your day with a win?
So my answer to this might be a little bit non-traditional. One of the things that I have really enjoyed about being my own boss is that I get to decide how I use my time. And so as I thought about how I was going to answer this question, Adam, I was like, I feel like I should have a routine. But the reality is I don't. The one thing, though, that I do consistently every single day is that I check in with myself and my energy, so that I can point my world that day in a way that is going to both feed my soul and set me up for success. And I have the luxury of doing that as my own boss. And so I can say, today I'm really feeling creative. And so today is the day that I want to write, that I want to create content, that I want to, dream about the future, versus today I'm feeling really like process driven, and today is going to be a back office day. And so really having the freedom to check in again with my energy and where I am for today, and use that to my advantage in terms of both happiness and results.
Awesome. Becky Morrison, author, coach, mom, rock star attorney in your past life, and really a happy person. It's so nice to have you on the show. Great to see you. Everybody, please check out Becky's book. Go to untanglehappiness.com and see what she has. Some great tips and information there. And Becky, we appreciate you, and thank you for being on Start With a Win.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, and thank you so much for listening to Start With a Win. Don't forget that the Start With a Win book comes out soon. So head over to startwithawin.com, pre-order your copy, order your copy, and start with the win. You were saying about kind of taking stock of what makes you happy. And I was curious, what are some things that make, you happy? Like, for me, there's some like very simple things. It's like when you put on a fresh pair of socks after you've like taken a shower, and they're like really like good. Like, that's just a good feeling.
Yeah.
What are some of your things that make you happy?
Well, it's funny. It wasn't going to be on my list, but since you said that, that makes me think of like, I love clean sheets.
Oh,
Love clean sheets.
So good.
And they're even better if I didn't have to put them on the bed or wash them. Like, so
yep.
when my husband takes care of that task, truly, that is one of the happy things. There's something about the clean, perfectly made bed that I didn't have to do. That's delightful.
Yeah, after you've taken a shower, you're super clean. And then it's like crispy, pulling the sheets back, and you slide and you're like, oh.
Best thing ever. Yeah.
There is nothing like that on this planet.
Yeah. I mean, it's so, and it's funny because my daughter is the opposite. She loves a rumpled bed. Like, for her, and it's funny, we were just talking about it this week. She's like, no, I love it when it's just the right amount of wrinkled and the right amount of slept in. And I'm like, you did not get that from me. So
we're clearly from a different generation.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I mean, that's one. And then the other one that I would say that I've tuned into is how much. I mean, I'm a curious person, intensely curious by nature, and how much joy I get from learning new things. It could be anything. It's not specific. Like, there's obviously things that I'm more interested in than other things, but as a family, we've just been learning to play chess. I had played a little bit in high school, but had no clue. And just seeing the connections get made and figuring out how to do something has been super, super fun.
That's so awesome. Hey, well, guys, thanks so much for sticking around on YouTube and seeing the show after the show. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel, as well as hit that thumbs up icon so you can share this video with other people. And then that bell icon, well, if you click that, that's going to notify you every single time a new episode gets released. Don't forget to go to startwithwin.com and pre-order your Start With Win book. And until next time, we'll see you when we see you.